I wanted to ask you about what about in terms of value plays? What about the oil and gas industry?
Oh, buying oil and gas companies. My apologies.
Rather than just prefer shares.
Let me pass that to Rob.
When we look at the oil market, and as I was saying, it's very hard to know in the short term what's going to happen with oil. I would point out that everyone got oil wrong in how low it went, so I think it's very hard to predict. We know that at some point, to balance supply and demand, oil has to go higher. The question is, does it go lower before it goes higher? And it could. And how long could it stay low? Because it stayed low longer than a lot of people thought it would. So for us, we like the energy sector, but if we're buying energy stocks, and because they're cheap, we want to buy energy companies that have the balance sheet that they're able to stay in business for an extended period of time, and not the highly levered ones that are going to run into bankruptcy problems, because we just don't know how long this environment could go on for.
Yeah, and this is just an interesting observation we've been doing some research on, but there is potentially a beginning of a secular change in how energy and how the grid works. So renewable energies last year, so I'm specifically speaking of wind and solar in particular, not only was more money invested in terms of new infrastructure in those areas than in all fossil fuels for the electricity grid combined, but the amount of power that's being added each year is more in those renewable areas than, at least from electricity generating perspective. So while this doesn't affect transportation issues or other things like that, there's a turning point. The price of solar energy and solar panels has dropped 80% in the last 5 years. So now it's at a price point, and it will continue to likely be at a price point, where it is absolutely competitive without subsidy with other forms of non-renewable energy. So, I would say that may be, a long-term shift in the increase in the demand for fossil fuels and oil and coal in particular. So it's just something we want to keep an eye on, because that's something that could be, quite frankly, material over time.